Over the past few years, Cardfight Vanguard has refused to make room for a new character to become the protagonist. We went back to Aichi again, then confusingly Shinemon Nita, and now currently our main character is Emi. These were all characters that were introduced since the beginning of the franchise, and is a sign of Bushiroad's reluctance to change or try new things. Fortunately, Overdress looks like it could be the breath of fresh air we've been waiting for, but in the meantime, let's design our own protagonist. The point of this exercise is twofold. First of all, we'll be analysing the Vanguard anime in an attempt to find patterns and trends that could lead to a believable design. And the second goal is to flex my character design muscles. We want a character who feels like a natural evolution of the Vanguard anime, one who fits right at home when lined up with the already existing characters, but on the other hand, he needs to feel somewhat unique, as if he's pushing the franchise forwards. The first and most important step in character design is figuring out who you're designing. We need to know a character's goals, ambitions, and personality before we even begin to put pencil to paper. Let's set a premise for the series for our character to slot into. Without any context, he won't make very much sense. The premise of the series I've decided on will be that it's about commentating. Teenagers hanging out in a card shop is great and all, but it can get a little stale when it's the only thing the anime ever focuses on. Here, the show will be growing up with its audience by featuring characters in their early 20s. Most people would have started watching Vanguard when they were teenagers, but now they'll be approaching adulthood. The job of these characters will be that they're working at Bushiroad, or whatever the in-universe equivalent of Bushiroad is, travelling around the world as they rise in the ranks and earn the right to commentate for bigger and more important events. They'll start off attending small convention centres and aim to one day commentate at the Asia circuit. This means that the characters will have a reason to care about the card game so deeply and always want to further their knowledge on it, whilst also being adults who can deal with more nuanced and complex character arcs. They aren't just teenagers getting bullied at school, they're adults who are dealing with grown-up problems. Aichi and Chrono have blue and red hair respectively, and these are two of the three primary colours. Because of this, it's only natural to use the remaining primary colour, yellow, as the basis for our new main character. To me, naming the character Haru makes a lot of sense because of this. It's the Japanese word for the spring season, so it fits with the yellow colour scheme really well. It also fits in line with Chrono and Aichi, both having 2 syllables in their name. Spring also pushes forward the idea of new beginnings and a fresh start, which fits perfectly with the kind of mentality I want the character to usher forward. For the surname, I've decided to go with Saito. At a glance, it sounds like it fits in with Sendo and Shindo, but actually the best part about this name is that it doesn't. See, the most important part of these 2 surnames is the do at the end. The kanji used translates as to lead. Yes, Aichi's name is a pun on him being a vanguard this whole time. Damn, that attention to detail, huh? But I've decided to intentionally break this tradition of having the do in the surname and replace it with to. It sounds similar, but it means something very different. In Japanese, it invokes the wisteria plant, one that's very meaningful in kabuki theatre. This works for 2 reasons. The first is the theatre angle. Haru is a commentator, so it's his job to put on a show and make sure that Vanguard is always fun to watch. He'll hype up the crowd and keep them involved. But also, the wisteria is a plant that fits really well with the spring theme of his name. The wisteria is a plant that symbolizes long life and immortality, and if Haru ends up being a successful character, then he could potentially inflict that effect upon the franchise itself. Gone are the days of Vanguard's identity crisis and rebooting itself. With the introduction of Haru, new life will be breathed into the series, bringing in new fans and spicing things up for returning fans. Now let's talk about personalities. Aichi was very shy and timid at school, but really came out of a shell and found his calling when playing Vanguard. Chrono was brash but lonely and bored, also finding his calling with Vanguard. One is quiet, the other reckless, so where do we go next with Haru Saito? As a commentator, Haru Saito has endless passion and knowledge for Cardfight Vanguard. However, his big weakness comes in the form of his short attention span. He gets bored of the same old metagame and intentionally plays using an underpowered deck, trying his hardest to win in unconventional ways. He loves inspiring others and hopes to one day become the role model or mentor to the next champion. He doesn't think of himself as the protagonist to his own story. So a couple things to touch upon. This all came naturally because of the name, context, and colour that we've already assigned to him. His passion and knowledge for Vanguard stems from him being an experienced commentator, and his short attention span is a unique flaw for a protagonist to have. If your character doesn't have a flaw that they need to work around, then they can be difficult to relate to and root for. This also goes hand in hand with his playstyle and deck. Him always switching up his playstyle means that the card fights won't get stale no matter how many times we see him fight. He loves to inspire others, which is why he became a commentator in the first place, but it also fits with his name and colour. Spring and yellow make you think of happiness and optimism, so that's the trait we've given him. And his dream of becoming a mentor to the next champion fits thematically with him being much older than the average card game anime protagonist, so it really shakes things up, creating a much different kind of dynamic among the characters than we're used to. Now let's draw him. You may think everything up to this point has been unimportant, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a solid understanding of who the character is before you start to draw them. The very first aspect I wanted to think about was the hair. Card game anime hair is infamously very over the top and can be used to our advantage to create an immediately recognizable silhouette. I started toying around with the idea of having these fanned out spikes on his forehead, but they didn't really look right to me despite me liking the idea. And I also like the idea of curling the back of his hair upwards. And I don't love the execution, but once again I do like the idea. After that, I drew this full body shot. This isn't even close to how it'll end up turning out when he's done, but having a finished and coloured image to work off of helps a lot. I gave him a suit and a lanyard to really sell him being an adult commentator, but honestly it looks far too grey and bland for a card game anime protagonist, and so I'm not very happy about it along with the hair. But now we have a solid jumping off point for him. Now that I know what I don't like about his design, I know what to change and focus on. So I redrew his hair a few more times, slightly tweaking it as I went, trying to learn how his hair worked and how to make it look good. After doing so, I eventually landed upon this, and I really like it. Instead of the 3 forehead spikes, there's only 2, resembling a check mark, and the back part of his hair is a lot more floofy and friendly looking. I then wanted to rethink the suit. It was far too plain and cold looking. The first obvious step was to give his outfit warmer colours. While his main colour is yellow, I like the idea of giving him blue as kind of like an accent colour. Something about the blue really makes the yellow pop and vice versa, and using it sparingly really brings out the design and gives a lot of visual variety to it without making him look convoluted. When designing the new commentator uniform, I ended up putting together this jacket. It has the traditional turtleneck that most Vanguard characters are known for wearing, which helps identify him as a Vanguard character from just a quick glance. The jacket also looks asymmetrical when it's buttoned up, which makes it look a little bit more interesting to look at. It now has a tan colour to it, which fits with the yellow colour scheme while still looking very professional. The ID badge is now a natural part of the jacket's design, rather than being a messy lanyard that will just get in the way. And the sleeves have a strap on them to make his hands instantly identifiable no matter what kind of pose you put him in or what kind of lighting. Now that I'm happy with the jacket and hair, I practiced drawing them a few more times, giving them some small tweaks along the way. Now it's time for another full body shot. When you put the two together, you can see a world of difference. To me, this totally looks like it could be a Cardfight Vanguard protagonist, and that kind of feels unreal. Now let's redraw him again to get everything nice and locked in, and here we go, Haru Saito. This was my process of creating a new Vanguard anime protagonist from scratch. Hopefully this has taught you a little bit about the art of character design, and if there's anything you take away from it, is that it's very easy once you've written and thought out a really solid context and personality for the character to have. If the character doesn't have goals and a setting assigned to them, then it doesn't matter how cool they end up looking. You must understand how your character works inside and out, and only then will what he physically looks like start to make sense, as your character designs are a vehicle for conveying all of this information. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this video and whether or not you'd like to see more like this. There's of course a lot more characters that can go along with him that I could totally do, such as maybe a rival, and hey, we didn't even mention his deck. But of course, all of that's for another time. Be sure to like and subscribe and let me know if you do want to see more, and I'll see you later with some more videos.